Hello everybody and welcome to the BCR webinar for this week. As you know, I'm away in the States this week, so I pre-recorded this with a special training module on the formula for profit. Now the formula for profit is a really important, in fact it's the biggest secret in business. Companies who don't know this are missing out, but there are so many who have learned the principles of this and actually don't apply it. And that's a great waste. So I'm going to go through it in some detail with you today, hoping that you'll be able to understand it and use it in your business. It's going to be in two formats. I'm first of all going to take you through some PowerPoints just to explain the concept, and then going to take you live into the formula for profit exercise and get you to start working on some of the key principles yourself. So please get pencil and paper ready and let's get started. First of all, the formula for profit is on the basis that there are 5 components of profit. They are lead generation, conversion rate, i.e. your sales skills, average number of transactions, also known as repeat business, the average sale price, and your percentage margin. Now, in BCR, there are going to be some areas that are more relevant, and you may feel you have more control over than others. For example, the average sale price. But that's not to say that they don't apply, and I want to show you how they apply to business in general, first of all, in order to be able to show you how they can then really work for you in your franchise. Let's just understand the 5 components first of all. Lead generation. This is about generating leads in your business by the marketing that you do, whether it's networking, whether it's LinkedIn activity, whether you're going to eventually do other sort of marketing. Point is this: what do you do to attract more customers? And how do you know what works and what doesn't work? Here's a very simple example. I'm going to give you one example for each of the 5 components so you can see how they work in practice. This was an ecology company I worked with, and their key point was that they hadn't been sending out an awful lot of marketing, so surprise, surprise, they hadn't been getting an awful lot of business. We created a targeted campaign and they started to follow up with phone calls, because phone calls actually, and that follow-up increases your chances of success again by that magical 10 times figure. One strategic alliance that they followed up after a simple mail shot got them 47 pieces of business. Now, how does this relate to your referrers, for example? One referrer, one accountant or bank could give you 47 different pieces of business. And I know in one case, I think Hamilton, you've got 71 or 72 leads as a result of one strategic alliance, one referrer. In this particular company, profits were up 633% year on year at one stage. And what were the costs? Just the cost of doing the emails, putting on a few stamps for the letters that they sent, and the follow-up. So that's how lead generation works. Moving on to the second of the 5 components, conversion rate. This is the most powerful area in your business. Double your conversion rate and you double your turnover. It's as simple as that. So how can you double it if you don't measure it? The key to this is to make certain that you measure your conversion rate. You know exactly what it is, and you can measure your conversion rate for referrers as well as direct with clients. Once you know those percentages, you can set a target for improvement. I was working with an online aquatic business, and they felt that they had difficulties of converting online. So what they did was to create client surveys and introduced a regular newsletter. They were intentionally interacting with their clients in the various forums, and within 2 years they'd won a top industry award, and now their business is consistently improving, simply for understanding how conversion rate applies whatever activity you're doing. So there's the first 2. The next is the average number of transactions. This is repeat business. You do know, I'm sure, but it is 6 times cheaper to develop existing contacts, existing clients, than it is to go out and get new ones. And yet this is the gold mine that's so often overlooked. Questions for you to consider. How many people do you have in your database? Do you have a database? What's your target for increasing it? What's your frequency of contact? How often do you make those contacts? Remember, people are going to, on average, say yes on the 7th time. The average number of transactions, again, with a business different to yours, but with a garden machinery company, they decided to have an invitation-only sale. Close the doors to anybody else at a particular one evening, and just brought in their existing clients for a private sale. Now, they generated sales of £20,000 in that one evening. And what's more, they sold old stock from years ago, just by inviting people. It's a bit like your seminars with Peninsula. Just by inviting people, you may find that you actually get sales in the first place and get increased numbers of sales. Here's the one that you may have some challenge with, because you can double and triple your turnover just by increasing the amount that your existing clients spend with you. So how can that apply in the franchise? Do your clients know everything that you sell? If it's energy, what about HR? Electricity, gas? How often do you invite them to look at everything that you can do for them? Here's one, exactly the point that we did a couple of weeks ago, which is looking at the ideal client profile. When you've got an ideal client profile, because it's ideal, those are the people you want. And you can only know that by first of all having a target for that, and then measuring how well your current database matches up to your ideal client target profile. In this particular case, once they realized who their clients were, their average sale went up nearly a quarter within 3 months. Really quite staggering when you really get focused what you can achieve. And then the final one of the 5 components is margins. As this is your business, it's really vital that you master the finances and you know the true margins in your business. Not necessarily relevant for you, but if people discount their prices, you've got to work so much harder in order to get the same amount of return. Whereas an increase in pricing very often creates a much better business all round, because your ideal clients will pay the amount that is fair to be part of your business. In your case, because you don't have to get them to pay you anything, the opportunity is so much larger in the sale environment. But in margins, how can you find ways to increase the percentage margin that stays with you from your business? In this particular case, a marketing company just put their prices up. And they did that now 8 years ago. And each month, each year, they get their best year ever. So in your margin, how can you look at just like you save costs for your clients, what can you do to save costs? What can you do to focus your activity on better clients so that your margins are ever improving? So let's pull all this together. The formula for profit. And it's the simple, basic mathematics that can guarantee to double your profits within 12 months, as long as you know the formula and as long as you apply it. It's the same principle of compounding that for those golfers amongst you, if you did decide to play Tiger Woods or Lee Westwood or whoever you want to play, and you just bet 10p a hole, that would be pretty good, wouldn't it? Think of the experience of playing with the world's greatest golfer for 10p a hole. And yet the compound maths of 10p doubling up just to 20p, and then to 40p, and then to 80p. Guess what the amount is that you would lose if you lost all 18 holes. It's actually in excess of £13,000. And the basic mathematic and the principle of compounding is what this formula is all about. We've looked at the 5 components. They're the items in the white on the left of your screen there. And the items in orange are the ones that most people focus on in business. Most people are focused on their turnover and their profits and perhaps the number of customers. But if you notice, none of those happen without something else happening. You don't get new customers without getting new leads and improving your conversion rate. You can't increase the turnover without having more transactions and increasing your sale price. So let's see how that works in this principle. I've showed one or two of you this. I think most of you have seen this in that first day that we had at head office, but I know not everybody did, so here it is. Let's assume that this business has 1,000 leads this year, in this last year, and that 20% of those turned into customers. So you had a 20% conversion rate, so 20% of 1,000 gives you 200 customers. And let's assume that you bought, or they bought from you twice a year, twice in the period, and that each time they did buy, they spent £1,000. Your turnover would be £400,000. Now let's assume that the margin is 25%, so your profit would be 100,000, a quarter of 400,000. All very simple. Now, this is what happens with the formula for profit when you just increase the components of profit by 10%. And let's first of all say that there are literally hundreds of things that you can do, but let's assume that you only found the top 3 things, the most important, most relevant ways to improve your leads in the course of the next year. Do you think it would be possible, by having world-class strategies and tactics, that you could increase by just 10%? Well, of course you could. And what that would mean is that your leads would go up by 10% there to 1,100. Let's assume then that you have a really big focus on your sales skills. Could you increase your conversion rate by 10%? Of course you can. In fact, that part of your brain called the reticular activating system, that is all to do with how you set goals in your business and in your life, says that actually just by being aware of something, you can improve productivity in that area by up to 10%. So arguably, just by knowing that you're looking for ways to improve, you could get the 10%. So let's see, that increases your number of customers. And let's say that we increase our number of transactions from our clients from 2 on average to 2.2 on average. Now, we focus on the average sale price, and we get that up by 10%. Here's the important bit. Each of those 4 items, those 4 components of profit, have increased by 10%. And yet, because of compound maths, the same thing that applied in that golf game that I just explained, means that your turnover goes up by 46%. Add in the 5th of the 5 components and increase that just by 10%, and your bottom line figure goes up by a whopping 61%. So just by increasing by 10% in the 5 key areas in this formula, you increase your bottom line by 61%. It delivers with absolute mathematical certainty. It's not an if, or a perhaps it might happen. It will happen. When you increase those 5 areas by 10%, your figures will go up, your bottom line profit will go up by 61%. All you need to do in order to double your profit is to increase those 5 areas by 15% rather than by 10%. Now, just supposing you believe that you don't have any control over the average sale, and you have that down as nil increase. Can you see that you're still going to get a huge increase in your bottom line by focusing on the areas that you can actively target? The point is, you can decide the increase that you want, and the formula for profit does the rest. So right now, I'm going to stop this show and come back to a different screen. This is a screen which is the formula for profit exercise. What I'd really encourage you to do now is to get a pen and paper and start thinking about this seriously. I'm going to get you to do some really close thinking in a moment or two's time. But first of all, let me just show you how this works. Let's just suppose that we're going to use this formula, and looking at the previous year, shall we say, we had those 1,000 leads, and we had the 20% profit. Okay, the average number of transactions we had as 2, and the average sale was 1,000. So that shows our turnover as 400,000, and the margin was 25%. Okay, with this formula, let's now just say, for sake of argument, you've seen what happens when you put a 10% across the board. Let's assume that you haven't done a lot of marketing this year and you could really increase your leads. Let's increase your leads by 50% next year. And let's target an increase in our sales skills of, well, let's get it up by 25% because we haven't done very well this year. We're learning some great stuff. Let's assume that's the case. Now, the average number of transactions, by adding in human resources, adding in the gas and electricity, well, even then, let's just say, let's keep that at 10%. And let's just say that you can't influence the average sale at all. So we're going to be realistic and say that's 0%. But you can influence your margin. So let's put that up by, let's say 20%. We're going to be much more productive. Look what happens to that bottom line figure here. You see, what we've done is on this area here, we've put in the last year's performance. This area here, we've allowed for the increase that we believe that we can achieve. And over here is what will happen when you do that. Can you see the huge increases possible just by focusing on the 5 components of profit? Right. Now, let's now look at how this really works, because let's look at lead generation. I hope you can all see that screen, and of course you will be able to hopefully pause this recording. I'm hoping you'll be able to do that, but I'm going to go through it carefully now. So just write down anything that sounds to you that it's worth doing, because what we're going to do here, and these exercises, a bit like I showed you last week in the systems process, it's the same sort of process. You've got a list here of all the different strategies, activities, call them what you will, that you can do to increase your lead generation. Here's offline and here's online. When you've looked at them all, then you're just going to identify what are your top 3 activities that will make the most difference. So when we come to finish this exercise, you're just going to say, out of all those things that we could do, those are the ones I like best. So now I'm going to choose my top 3. Once you've done that, if increasing leads is part of your 5556 goals, your 5556 goals, your most important goals for the immediate future, then you're going to start to put this activity into your stag and create a stag sheet for lead generation, for example. If this isn't a priority at the moment, then you will have already done the exercise and you will be ready to come back. When it is a priority, when it is a goal for you, you'll have already done the groundwork. I hope that makes sense to you. So let's just now go through here. Here are all the things. Let's look at offline first. So let me get rid of the cursor for a moment. In fact, I'll bring it back here. So number 1, and these aren't in order, but I'm going to run through these quickly and tell you what they involve. Maintaining a productive sales funnel. What does that mean? It means learning about sales and knowing that with the 7-touch process, you've got a sales funnel where people go from cold leads to warm leads and actually fall out of the bottom of the funnel as clients. What about a referral system here? That's exactly what you're doing with all your introducers. How about a system? A systemized version of that, so it always happens. What about a strategic alliance? That could be actually related to your referrals, but having people who will work with you strategically, who are allied to you, who will promote you, perhaps for a benefit, perhaps for a financial benefit, perhaps for just the fact that you're helping them in their business too. Next one is networking functions. It could be breakfast meetings, it could be chamber meetings. You might choose next to employ salespeople. Cold calling. Well, perhaps that's not quite so relevant for your business now. The reason I've got all these and going through them all is for you to understand how these do work in business. Your responsibility is to find out the ones that are going to work best for your business, for your franchise. Seminars and events. You understand that? You're already doing that with Peninsula. What about writing a book or an e-book on your specialist subject? If you do that, can you see how that positions you as an expert? You might want to choose direct mail. Interesting, that's not so popular nowadays, which means people take notice of it more. Or telemarketing, yourself or outsource it. Again, perhaps not quite so relevant, particularly if you're looking for referrals that are already warm leads, but at some stage you're going to need to pick up the phone and speak to people. What about sponsoring events or companies? What about having a database? Very absolutely key. If you're going to do any activity in lead generation, you're going to have an up-to-date database and a list of database of your ideal client targets. Directories is another one. You understand, I'm sure, what that is. What about network marketing opportunities? Maybe not for you. But what about piggybacking your message on other activities? When people send out their invoices to their clients, what about having a note or a flyer in there that's showing them how they can save money at the same time that they're paying money, paying somebody else's bill? Advertising, interesting, because you'll only advertise when you don't know who your clients are, who your targets are. But when you do, and just supposing they have a specific magazine or publication that they always read, that would be the only time to really advertise, because you advertise when you don't know who your clients are. When you do, you can focus in a lot more. Newsletters, very interesting. An IFA client of ours sends out a newsletter every week. Maybe you could do something the same. Next one, very important, to test and measure absolutely everything. I'm just going to scroll down here and show you a little bit more of some of these, because I don't need to go through them all. But promotions, contest competitions, joint ventures, similar to strategic alliances. Posters in coffee shops and supermarkets? Probably not. But follow-up? Yes, absolutely. You must always follow up within 48 hours. Run different marketing strategies at the same time. That's the marketing rule of 10. Next one, you can see here, ideal clients. Why not advertise for free in places like Craigslist? Make your business cards work for you. If you're going to have a business card, what about having something in the back that gets them to do a little exercise? Press releases. When was the last time that you got in touch with your local newspaper and gave them a news story about what's happening to businesses in your area? Brochures, perhaps. Window displays, not for you, I wouldn't think. Give away interesting, valuable information, absolutely. How about with the newsletter that I mentioned earlier, giving away a report each month? Gimmicks, perhaps not, and open days or trade shows. Trade shows, what about trade shows for exhibiting to people and displaying what you can do? Get people to come and bring a friend to a special seminar. Changing your location from no, that doesn't apply so much, but what about a survey? Creating a thought-provoking survey where people actually are going to think about the questions you ask and answer them, so that they're getting involved and actually are going to be looking to you for the answers to the challenges that you've raised by asking the questions. And how many of you could consider being on the local radio, in the local paper, as the expert? So look at all those things. There's 30-odd things there that could easily work in your business. The point is, which are the ones that are the most important? Which will work best? And that's just offline. Online. I know, for example, David is using LinkedIn very well. What about all of you using things like LinkedIn? Affiliate marketing, getting people to, I know that Mark, you've really investigating the idea of paying people to refer to you. You can do that by understanding things like affiliate marketing. SEO is important. And keeping your web page. Do you have a separate web page that people can go and find out? And if it is LinkedIn, get testimonials on there so people can see up-to-date information. Other social media, well, quite possibly, but LinkedIn is the one that, for me, is the business one. But learn all you can about internet marketing. Maybe create a blog. Article marketing is another thing. If you don't know anything about these, investigate them and then decide whether they are for you. Article marketing might work really well. This is where you write an article. You become a published author online. And in your article marketing at the bottom, after having given advice as to how to save money, for further information, contact Joe Blogs. What about involving yourself in an online forum discussions? Now at the moment, maybe some of you are thinking, this is all very well, and it's going to take time. And yes, it is. Because if you only increase a little bit each day, each week, each month, each year, you've seen the impact of that compound multiplication of effort and results. Other things down here, you could choose e-zines and e-zine marketing perhaps. All these things, if you're going to be doing anything online, make certain you have a landing page, also called a squeeze page, so that they give you their email or telephone number in exchange for a report that shows them the top 10 ways to save money on their utility bills, for example. Okay, so as we've been going through there, hopefully you've been making a few notes. Here's the time to now really come up with your top 3. So let me remind you, this is just for lead generation. And by going over to the left-hand column here, which of these are the ones that you're going to choose? Either do it now or make a note to come back after this webinar session and to make the choices yourself. Your biggest responsibility as the business owner is to make the right choices. So, can you see that working on lead generation has got lots of choices? It's that buffet table again. You can have anything you want from the buffet table, but you just can't try to get everything you want onto your plate because it'll all fall off. It's time to make your decisions. So hopefully that's giving you a few good tips on lead generation. Remember the second one, conversion rate. Now, hopefully you've got the way this works. A lot of our modules and models are very simple like this, where it gives you a list of the most popular, successful, effective strategies and activities to improve in each area, and it's up to you to choose which will work best for you. So if your conversion rate, if you're targeting improvements in your conversion rate, and a quick point on that, if you are converting 100% of everybody you see, that's great. That really is great on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's telling you that you're not seeing nearly enough people. So you would need to use the lead generation to go out and get far more leads, and you may not feel that you have to improve your conversion rate, but go for this, go for the Kaizen principle of constant and never-ending improvement, because you're only getting 100% conversion rate because you're not seeing enough people at the moment. If you were to see double that number of people and your conversion rate fell to 85%, imagine the impact that would have on your bottom line, and if you then started improving up from that 85% bit by bit. So here are a few things to get started with. Train your team in sales. Okay, so you may not have a team, but anybody who answers your phone on your behalf is your team. So make certain that they're going to be attracting clients rather than deflecting them. Make certain that you use the principle of sales scripts. Now I might hear one or two of you saying, oh, scripts, you mean I've got to learn something off parrot fashion? Absolutely not, but absolutely yes to learn something. Learn your questions that you'll ask, the questions that will get the right answers, the things that you're going to say at the beginning of the call that will always work. There's only one best way of doing something. Make certain that you're always doing it the best way and that you consistently do that until you, through constant and never-ending improvement, find an even better way, and then always do that. Point 3, the sales process, really important. If you haven't got a sales process, how likely are you to convert whenever you want? Position your sales process from the outset. Tell them what will normally happen, what they can expect from you, what you expect from them. And when you're going to meet them to make a decision, find out if they're ready. If they're ready to make that decision, if there's any other information they need in order for you to help them make that decision. Lots of the next ones are all about things that are really important. A little more or less tangible, but really important to build into your business. Integrity, trust, rapport. You know, more than anything, you're educating on the value, but actually the value is very often of them saving money. Get product knowledge in you and your team, and I noticed a number of you are really investing time to go and learn new things at head office. Upsell, cross-sell, downsell. DISC, which is the next one here. If you have only taken passing interest in learning DISC, I'm urging you to really invest in your knowledge on that one. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. If you're interested in how the brain works and how to use that, go and learn about it. Know that your clients, even when they're saving money on their bills, normally make their decisions on their emotions as opposed to on logic. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because you're helping them save money, which is very logical. But actually, 10% or the 10% saving there actually creates, for example, the equivalent of £100,000 extra income, which allows them to significantly develop their business in areas that they haven't done so yet. So don't just go for the logic. Help them understand that you're part of building their ambitions. Some of these we've already covered. For example, follow-up. So why is it here as well as in lead generation? Because it's so important. Anytime you've got one activity that jumps out in all these different areas, you can be sure that that means that that's a real priority to consider. Benefits and features. I'm sure you know that, but you're not actually just helping them save, which is the feature. It's the benefit of what they can do with that saving, the fact that they may be able to employ more sales staff to make even more sales, or they might be able to make the move that they've always wanted to make. Other things down here, your vision. What about a questionnaire? I've talked to a few of you about that in terms of if you got your clients to complete a preliminary questionnaire, how much information would that give you that might save you a whole load of time going and wasting time with small clients and allow you to focus on the really big clients? Asking for the sale, asking for their business, because of course you're not really selling anything, which is the great thing about what you've got. But next, we've done that a couple of weeks ago, your ideal client. Know that if you are using direct marketing, either you or an outsource, the phone mail phone principle is you phone up to find the decision maker, you send them something, and then you phone up to check that they've got it and how interested they are. Database activity, sales activity. Here's more on the setting targets for your database. And all these things. What about running webinars? What about getting in LinkedIn to get a group where you can start running a webinar like this that you could pre-record and that you could be selling and getting people interested in what you do while you're on the beach. So other things here, your questions funnel absolute must to know the right questions. Question softeners, what are they? Well, they're things that say, by the way, or you introduce it by saying, incidentally, or just to clarify. So all these things, you don't need me to go through them all, but if you do have a guarantee, if you are aware of your uniqueness, if you have a range of products that you promote each time, and here, who would buy from anybody who didn't have any testimonials? As soon as you've got your first clients, get them to write you a testimonial. Right at that moment, that's the time they're hottest in terms of writing a testimonial for you. And so here, the conversion rate, your top 3, just exactly the same process as with lead generations. So let's move on. Average number of transactions, also known as repeat business. Let's look at that very quickly because there's less on here. How can you wow your clients with something that's unexpected? The whole process that Mark and Guy and a number of the others of you, Julian, I think, got from having a manual process. Well, actually, whether it's systemized IT or systemized by you having a manual system, this reminder process is so important. Follow up, follow up. Invite people who said no last year, go back and ask them again this year. What about invite your clients to take more of what you do, make more savings. Know your best clients. You know, we did this the other week. Ideal client profile. Grade them A, B, C, and D. If you want to have a bit of fun with it, A could stand for awesome. B could stand for better or basic. C could stand for can't deal with, and D stands for dead. The point is, aim for the A and Bs all the time, and know that by creating your ideal client profile. How about that database activity? You can see things are consistently appearing here as priorities. Under promise, over deliver. Be consistent. Regular contact. How often are you contacting your clients? Keeping in contacts, just keeping yourself front of mind. What about promoting a saving of the week or a saving of the month or the season? And other things here, including a newsletter. Average number of transactions. Very important, very underutilized. Repeat business, and look at all the areas that you can save your clients money on, and that equals an opportunity to increase. Average sale value. That's the next one. And this is the one that one or two of you have said, how does this apply to us? Well, let's just look at it, because do you remember we actually put 0 in here just to show you that this formula works regardless. But if you could get a small increase here, or understand that all these things that we've got on the list here actually may also work complementary to the other components of profit. Know your ideal client, and they are likely to value you more. Upsell, cross-sell. Train your clients in how you want them to act. You see, and think of this as the biggest reason for the average sale is, again, on your ideal client. If you go to the small corner shop, then the amount that you're going to get in is X. When you go to Wembley Stadium, it's going to be 1,000 times X. And that's where the average sale goes in. So turn your sales scripts into the right questions, open questions, questions funnel again, all linked. Set targets for you and your team. Set targets for your clients. When are you going to get back to me? When would you like me to work with you to do this? Get rid of the clients that are going to waste your time. And looking down here, what else? Test and measure everything. Use your client questionnaires to understand their needs. When you've got a client, how about keeping in contact with them every 3 or 6 months with just checking how it's going? Please let me know. And the 80-20 rule down here, that Pareto principle, amazing how it works. 20% of your profit will be, and 20% of your waste will come from 80% of the people you're dealing with. And if you think of earning 20% of your profit in one day, so one day a week, 1 day out of 5 equals 20%. Just imagine if you could double that by making 2 days really, really profitable. The 80-20 rule is all about focusing on the priorities. And then moving on into margin. Let's look at that, because again, I focus on the fact that some of these may be not quite so easy. But what about identifying and promoting your highest margin? What are the services that you get the most from? Making that database, again, absolutely accurate, up to date with your ideal clients. When you have team members when you're employing people. Instead of offering overtime, place it with time off in lieu. Turn from thinking that you can manage time, which is impossible to do, because it's the same 86,400 seconds every day for all of us, but you can manage the activity within it. And boy, does that apply to the success timetable more than anything. Know your finances. Control your budget. Know how well you're on track each week, each month, each quarter, each year. And of course, Merlin allows you to even know where you're going in the 5th year. Create your budget. Have these targets for expenditure. Learn how to negotiate. Not negotiate because you're not selling a product, but know how to talk to people. It's 2 ears and 1 mouth. Learn how to listen. Learn how the old school of selling by telling people. Selling isn't telling. Selling is helping somebody buy what they want from you. And because they don't even have to pay you anything to buy it. What a great skill that would be to learn how to ask better questions. Systemize another 80%. Systemize 80% of the routine so that you can personalize 20% of the exceptions. We looked at that the other week. What else here is useful? Set targets for improvements in all key areas. Analyze, test and measure everything. Can you see how? What have we done? We've covered well over probably 100, nearly 200 items here across these last 5 components of profit. And each time there's a specific call to action for you to choose your top 3 activities to improve your performance in the formula for profit. So hopefully that little exercise has got you thinking about what you can do in your business. Now I want you to, if you can, pause the recording, do that, and write down your number 1. If not, come back to it as soon as we've finished, because this is absolutely the gold mine for your business. There are things that we've just gone through in the last 45 minutes or so that will transform your business. Full stop, fact. It will only do so if you choose to take time to decide what the right ones are for you and take time to move forward with it. So there, I hope, and I really appreciate, even though I may not be able to see your emails or answer them until next week, I really hope that you've got a great deal out of that. Now let's get back to the second part of what we do each week. Now you're not going to be able to share it with everybody, but make certain, if you would, that you review your week. What were the biggest accomplishments last week? How did you get on with the specific goals that you set yourself? What are the biggest challenges? If you've got challenges this week, and I'm sure all of you are happy to do this, why not phone around each other and just say, look, I'm really having an issue with this. I know you dealt with it a few weeks ago. I heard you talking about it on the webinar. How did you do it? Be prepared to give and help your colleagues, because that will be a great camaraderie and a spirit that will work there. So do the quick review to yourself this time. And then most importantly, right now, is setting your goals for this week. Remember, written goals increase your likelihood of success 10 times. When you plan them and write them down, that increases it by 20 times. There's a business guru called Chet Holmes who also says that when you are held accountable for them, it increases it by another 400%. So if you can now, pause the recording. If you can't, make a note to, as soon as I finish talking, to spend 5 or 10 minutes writing down what are your goals for the coming week. Now, if you're using STAG correctly, your first goal will be to work through STAG according to the already scheduled activity. There may also be other important goals that you need to put down for this week. put them down and measure your performance against them next week. Because to finish off today, if you think about it like this, look at those tiniest of increases that each of those individual things in those 5 component areas of profit could produce in your business. It might only be an increase of 0.47% on one particular day in that particular activity. But that is the difference between going from 211 degrees to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the difference of changing yourself from water to steam, something that can power turbines and light cities. As Warren Buffett says, it's not necessary to do extraordinary things to get extraordinary results. And that's where I'd like to leave it with you for today. I really hope you've got a great deal out of today. The real benefit will be what you put into planning, reviewing, deciding, making the right choices about how you use the formula for profit. So I'll be back on the normal time next week for the webinar. In the meantime, I wish you a very successful week this week and enjoy understanding, learning and implementing the formula for profit. For the moment, everybody, cheerio from me.